Myo Renge Kyo Nam Myo Renge Kyo Nam Myo Renge Kyo. All right then, let us continue. Got a little bit more light in here. Might be in order. All right. Namu Myo Renge Kyo. If the sutra that one embraces is superior to all other sutras, then the person who can uphold its teachings must likewise surpass other people. That is why the Lotus Sutra states, quote, "A person who can accept and uphold this sutra is likewise foremost among all living beings," end quote. There is no question about these golden words of the great sage, and yet people fail to understand this principle or to examine the matter, but instead seek worldly reputation or give way to suspicion and prejudice, thus forming the basis for falling into hell. So I think it's important here, in light of human ego, that we understand this translation. It is a translation, that these concepts in English that are very tend to be narrow and dry. When he says a person who upholds these teachings must likewise surpass other people, this is not I'm superior to you egotistical statement, because right afterward he points out that people who fail to understand this principle or to examine the matter, but instead seek worldly reputation. See, that in English is what we think is meant by surpassing others and being superior. That's not what it's meant. Or give way to suspicion and prejudice. So right away I want to correct any misperceptions on that. The superiority isn't an egotistical statement of being better than in a competitive or comparative worldly sense. But certainly, let's see, where could I draw an analogy? I suppose the person who knows how to prepare a feast properly, somebody, even a salad, somebody who has access to running water, refrigeration, and utensils, a bowl, can cut up and prepare a salad with several greens and vegetables, and maybe even a favorite dressing, what have you. It could be argued would partake of a superior salad to somebody whose only method for eating greens would be to run around outside, scaring away animals from vegetation so they could rip up greens from the ground and just shove it in their mouth and eat whatever they come across, whether animals have urinated on it or insects are on it or what have you. You could say, well, they're both getting fed greens, but it could easily be argued, don't you think, that the person with access to better means of production and preparation would not only have a healthier, a better meal, but also would stand to enjoy it and appreciate partaking of it in a greater sense. It's a very loose analogy. I'm just trying to get you to understand that when in this statement he says surpasses other people, what he's saying is that their opportunity to fulfill their Buddha nature and experience rapidly their awakening is far more expeditious and far more beneficial than the person struggling in clouded views and whose preoccupation is personal superiority and ego and whether they're right or wrong and so on and so forth. You see the distinction I'm trying to make there? I apologize for a bad analogy, but if you're a foodie, perhaps you'll get it. Or it'll work for you, I should say. Okay. All I wish is that you will embrace this sutra and cast your name upon the sea of the vows made by the Buddhas of the 10 directions, that you entrust your honor to the heaven that is the compassion of the bodhisattvas of the 3 existences. One who thus embraces the Lotus Sutra will cause the heavenly gods, dragons, and others of the 8 kinds of non-human beings, as well as all the great bodhisattvas, to become one's followers. Followers not in the sense of just idly following in your footsteps, but followers in the sense of great supporters, egging you on and keeping you afloat and keeping you focused. Okay? More of a support team. I'm taking issue with a lot of the English translation here, but I want you to do the same. I want you to understand what is being transmitted here. Not fall for the words of whatever translation authority was given. The reason I'm reading all of these Gosho isn't because I think they're word for word correct. I've done a lot of correcting in this particular set of books that I'm putting out there to help suss out, if you will, the real meaning, which is what Buddha always told us to seek. Don't get trapped in the words. Those are just human conceits, okay? Not only that, he says, but that person's physical body, still in the process of forming causes for achieving Buddhahood, will acquire the Buddha eye of one who has perfected that course, and this ordinary flesh that exists in the realm of the conditioned will put on the holy garments of the unconditioned. Then one need never fear the 3 paths, or tremble before the 8 difficulties. One will ascend to the peak of the mountain of the 7 expedients and sweep away the clouds of the 9 worlds. The 9 worlds is a reference to the 10 worlds, the 10th one being Buddha, right? Flowers will bloom in the garden of immaculate earth, and the moon will shine brightly in the sky of the Dharma nature. One can rely on the passages that promises, quote, such a person assuredly and without doubt will attain the Buddha way, end quote. And there is no question about the Buddha's pronouncement that, quote, I am the only person who can rescue and protect others, end quote. The blessings gained by arousing even a single moment of resolute mind and conviction and understanding of the Lotus Sutra surpass those of practicing the 5 paramitas, and the benefit enjoyed by the 50th person who rejoices on hearing the Lotus Sutra is greater than that acquired by giving alms for 80 years. The doctrine, these are all references, of course, and you can look in the notes of the book to get the references and do your own research and further on that. The doctrine of the immediate attainment of enlightenment far outshines the doctrines of other teachings, and the pronouncements concerning the revelation of the Buddha's original enlightenment and his immeasurable lifespan are never found in any other teaching. Thus it was that the 80-year-old dragon girl was able to come out of the vast sea and in an instant give proof of the power of this sutra and superior practices. A bodhisattva of the essential teachings emerged from beneath the great earth and thereby demonstrated the unfathomably long lifespan of the Buddha. This is the King of Sutras, defying description in words, the wonderful law that is beyond the mind's power to comprehend. To ignore the supremacy of the Lotus Sutra and assert that other sutras stand on a par with it is to commit the worst possible slander of the law, a major offense of the utmost gravity. No analog could suffice to illustrate it. The Buddhas, for all their powers of magical transformation, could never finish describing its consequences, and the Bodhisattvas, with all the wisdom at their command, could not fathom its immensity. Thus the, quote, simile and parable, end quote, chapter of the Lotus Sutra says, quote, if I were to describe the punishments that fall on persons who slander this sutra, I could exhaust a kalpa and never come to the end, end quote. This passage means that not even a whole kalpa would be enough time to explain the full gravity of the offense of a person who acts even once against the Lotus Sutra. For this reason, a person who commits this offense will never be able to hear the preaching of the Buddhas of the three existences and will be cut off from the doctrines of the thus come one, who are as numerous as the sands of the Ganges. Such a person will move from darkness into greater darkness. How could he escape the pains and sufferings of the great citadel of the Avicii hell? Could a thoughtful person fail to dread the prospect of lengthy kalpas of misery? Now, there's a clue again in how I'm always trying to decipher the hyperbole of Buddhist teachings. He's talking about escaping the citadel, the great citadel of the Avicii hell. And in the very next sentence, making reference to this very thing, he says, how could you fail to dread the prospect of such a lengthy kalpas of misery? Okay, so again, the hells aren't a place. They're not a real thing other than your human experience. All of Buddhism is about human experience, experiencing the enlightened Buddha nature that already exists in life is how we rid ourselves or release ourselves from all the attachments that we inculcate suffering from. So when he talks about the hell, he's right there telling you this is misery. Misery is a human emotion, a human feeling, a human experience. So the hell is that misery, is that experience. It's a negative one, right? Thus the sutra states, quote, if a person, on seeing those who read, recite, copy, and uphold this sutra, should despise, hate, envy, or bear grudges against them, when his life comes to an end, he will enter the Avicii hell. So this is where you're headed, misery, is basically what that's saying. This passage means that a person who despises, looks down on, hates, envies, or holds a grudge against those who read and embrace the Lotus Sutra will fall into the great citadel of the Avicii hell after he dies, which happens at each and every moment, correct? Who could help but fear these golden words of the great sage, and who could doubt the clear-cut pronouncement of the Buddha when he said, quote, honestly discarding expedient means, I will preach only the unsurpassed way, end quote. However, people all turn their backs on these sutra passages, and the world as a whole is completely confused with regard to the principles of Buddhism. Why do you persist in following the teachings of evil friends? Tendai said that to accept and put resolute mind and conviction in the doctrines of evil teachers is the same as drinking poison. You should deeply consider this and beware. Taking a careful look at the world today, we see that although people declare that the law is worthy of respect, they all express hatred for the person who upholds it. You yourself seem to be very much confused as to the source from which the law springs. Just as all the different kinds of plants and trees come forth from the earth, so all the various teachings of the Buddha are spread by persons. As Tendai said, quote, even during the Buddha's lifetime, the law was revealed by people. How then, in the latter age, can one say that the law is worthy of respect, but that the person who upholds it is to be despised? End quote. Hence, in the law that one embraces is if the law that one embraces is supreme, then the person who embraces it must accordingly be foremost among all others. And if that is so, then to speak ill of that person is to speak ill of the law, just as to show contempt for the child is to show contempt for the parents. You should realize that from this you should realize from this that the people of today speak words that in no way match what is in their hearts. It is as though they were to beat their parents with a copy of the classics of filial piety. When they know that, unseen by others, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are observing them, how can they fail to be ashamed of such actions? The pains of hell are frightful indeed. Beware of them. Beware of them. When you look at those of superior capacity, do not disparage yourself. The Buddha's true intention was that no one, even those of inferior capacity, be denied enlightenment. Conversely, when you compare yourself with persons of inferior capacity, do not be arrogant and overproud. Even persons of superior capacity may be excluded from enlightenment if they do not devote themselves wholeheartedly. One may think fondly of one's native village, but paying no visit and with no particular reason to go, one in time gives up the idea of returning. Or one may pine for a particular person, but with no hope of winning that person's love and having exchanged no vows, one abandons the thought of waiting. So in like manner, we neglect to journey to the pure land of Eagle Peak, though it surpasses in grandeur the palaces of nobles and high ministers, and moreover is quite easy to reach. We fail to behold the gentle and benign figure of the Buddha, who has declared, quote, "I am a father to you," end quote, though we ought surely to present ourselves before him. Should we not grieve at this until our sleeves are drenched with tears and our hearts consumed by regret? The color of the clouds in the sky is as twilight falls, the waning light of the moon when dawn is breaking. These things make us ponder. In the same way, whenever events remind us of life's uncertainty, we should fix our thoughts on the existence to come. When we view the blossoms of spring or the snow on a winter morning, we should think of it, and even on evenings when winds bluster and gathering clouds tumble across the sky, we should not forget it, even for an instant. What is it that we shouldn't forget? Our Buddha nature. The ultimate realization of what's going on. Be human. Observe what there is to observe. Enjoy the things to enjoy and suffer the things to suffer. But always, if you keep in mind that it is something you're observing and detach yourself from it, by all means observe it. But know that that is not your ultimate reality. That is not the reality of the precious and fragile nature of life in its entirety. This is what Buddha awakening is. Life lasts no longer than the time the exhale of one breath awaits the drawing of another. This again points to moment existence, life and death, arising and falling away. It's constantly going on. Always. This is the rebirth formula of Buddhism, if you will. I'll read that again. Life lasts no longer than the time the exhaling of one breath awaits the drawing of another. Not the breath itself. I'll read it again. Life lasts no longer than the time the exhaling of one breath awaits the drawing of another. How much time is there between exhale and inhale? That's the entire life. So this is the rebirth, and this is the death. At what time, what moment, should we ever allow ourselves to forget the compassionate vow of the Buddha, who declared, quote, "At all times I think to myself, how can I cause living beings to gain entry into the unsurpassed way and quickly acquire the body of a Buddha," end quote. This is part of Gongyo, right? Part of the second chapter. On what day or month should we permit ourselves to be without the sutra that says, quote, if there are those who hear the law, then not a one will fail to attain Buddhahood, end quote. How long can we expect to live on as we have from yesterday to today, or from last year to this year? We may look back over our past and count the years we have accumulated, but when we look ahead into the future, who can for certain number himself among the living for another day or even an hour? And as I just said recently on Quora, the past is what? It's just a reference of what we've remanufactured in this current moment. And to think of the future is to forget about what we're doing at this moment. This moment is everything. And so this is what Nichiren is talking about here. In this moment is when you need to be clearly determined and focused on your Buddha nature. It doesn't exist anywhere else. It's not something you tripped over last week, and it's not something you will eventually find. You may become more adept at inculcating it into each moment of your life, but if you don't do it in this moment, how can it possibly exist in the next? Yet, though one may know that the moment of one's death is already at hand, one clings to arrogance and prejudice, to worldly fame and profit, and fails to devote oneself to chanting this law. Such an attitude is futile beyond description. Even though the Lotus Sutra is called the teaching that enables all living beings to attain the Buddha way, how could a person such as this actually attain it? If you're constantly preoccupied with manipulations and prejudices, reliving the past, or projecting it into the future, how can you change the future if you don't change now? Because now is what the future will be made of. It is said that even the moonlight will not deign to shine on the sleeve of an unfeeling person. Moreover, as life does not go beyond the moment, how many times am I going to point this out? As life does not go beyond the moment, the Buddha expounded the blessings that come from a single moment of rejoicing on hearing the Lotus Sutra, Myoho Renge Kyo. If 2 or 3 moments were required, this could no longer be called the original vow of the Buddha endowed with the great impartial wisdom, the single vehicle of the teaching that directly reveals the truth and leads all living beings to attain Buddhahood. It's in this moment, Myoho Renge Kyo. As for the time of its propagation, the Lotus Sutra spreads during the latter age when the Buddha's law is about to perish. As for what capacity of persons it is suited to, it can save even those who commit the 5 cardinal sins, or who slander the correct teaching. Therefore you must be guided by the intent of the Lotus Sutra, which is the immediate attainment of enlightenment, and never give yourself up to the mistaken views that stem from doubts or attachments. So if you're not sure how to teach this Buddhism, how to follow your bodhisattva path, if you think that you're not capable of all of this knowledge and the right words to say, I mean, come on, listen to me. If you're listening to me, I think it's because of my passion and my great understanding for myself of this teaching. And I hope that my mishmash of English and language relates to you. I have to believe that that's the reason you're listening to me. Because you have this already. Myoho Renge Kyo, in this moment. If you need to hear it from me in the way that I explain it, how wonderful is that? For me and for you. Am I superior to you? Hell no. We're the same, you and I. This is how I communicate my process of awakening. You will find your own voice. But what Nichiren is saying here is just share Myoho Renge Kyo. Just that. That's it. That's the core of everything. Once you start asking questions about that, well, that's study. Some people may not. They may just do it and go, wow, this is amazing, and just do it. And they will put you in awe, because you will then realize how amazing this is. And that is your Bodhisattva practice. That is your awakening. That is the process. That's the method. That's all that Nichiren is saying, and he's repeating what every scholar all the way back to Shakyamuni has said. If you simply share this practice, what is the practice? Myoho Renge Kyo. With others, that is your Bodhisattva practice, you will attain full enlightenment. Without telling others about it, you are taking a long road, because you're going to be fighting a battle with your human self constantly. But when we expand ourself to others, we break all those boundaries. I wish I had a huge animation studio that I could just animate this with sound and light and fury, breaking through this human veil of understanding, and just, you know, that's Myoho Renge Kyo. And you experience when you help others. You know this. You've already done this in other ways. But this is the ultimate way. How long does a lifetime last? You keep coming back to the same thing. If one stops to consider, it is like a single night's lodging at a wayside inn. Should one forget that fact and seek some measure of worldly fame and profit? Though you may gain them, and they may and will be mere prosperity in a dream, a delight scarcely to be prized, you would do better simply to leave such matters to the karma formed in your previous existences. So he's talking about the past. To try to create fame and fortune for yourself is to try to change your past. What a futile endeavor. Just leave them there. Leave them in the past. Right now, you can be awakened, fully awakened Buddha. How is that not better? And at very least, committing to it at this moment, even just for yourself, guarantees, and that's what throughout the sutra and throughout what Nichiren says, guarantees the next moment to be awakened. Or for awakening to be a part of the next moment, to whatever degree you are able to accomplish it in this moment, and by extension, helping others to see that just makes this a greater moment, a more profound moment, closer to full enlightenment. That guarantees a future of enlightenment. I'd much rather spend my time on that. Once you awaken to the uncertainty and transience of this world, you will find endless examples confronting your eyes and filling your ears. Vanished like clouds or rain, the people of past ages have left nothing but their names. Fading away like dew, drifting far off like smoke, our friends of today, too, disappear from sight. Should you suppose that you alone can somehow remain forever like the clouds over Mount Mikasa? That's another fable. I'm loving this. I mean, this Go show without reference to it is so much the way that I wear this Buddhism. I consume this Buddhism. The spring blossoms. I'm getting close to 30 minutes. Okay, the spring blossoms depart with the wind. Maple leaves turn red in autumn showers. All are proof that no living thing can stay for long in this world. Therefore, the Lotus Sutra counsels us, nothing in this world is lasting or firm, but all are like bubbles, foam, heat, shimmer. So on that, I'm going to have to wait till the next video to go on, but I hope I found that inspirational, and I hope my sense for it was transmitted to you so that you could be excited about Myoho Renge Kyo. And with that, thank you so much for participating. See you next time. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo.